Good morning. I'd like to call to order the Sunshine Coast Regional District Committee of the Whole meeting at 9:30 on April 25th, 2024, and acknowledge that the Sunshine Coast Regional District is within the territories of the Shishel and the Skohomish Nations. First, we have an agenda to adopt. Moved by Director Back, seconded by Director Gabius. Is that straightforward? Is there any questions about the agenda? All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries. And our first report is on ECOM, Emergency Communications, Annex A, pages 3 to 4, and we have Interim Manager of Protective Services, Bill Higgs, to speak to this report. I don't know if you want to do a quick introduction, but you're welcome to.
Great, thank you very much. Yes, my name is Bill Higgs. I'm the Interim Director of Protective Services for the Sunshine Coast Regional District, retired fire chief from Sechelt Fire for a few decades. And I'm happy to be here in support of this proposal to renew some co-location agreements between ourselves and ECOM, our service provider for 911. And I'll let GM Hall just introduce the content.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is a relatively status quo renewal of a co-location agreement for antenna. It protects our service level, and it's already budgeted for. This will just continue our operations. And Manager Higgs or I are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I see a question from Director Gabius.
Not a question. I would like to move the recommendations on page 3.
Seconded by Director Bax. Any discussion of this motion? All those in favor? The motion carries. And I'm just wondering if we could get a subsequent motion to receive all reports and materials in this agenda. Moved by Director Bax, seconded by Director McMahon. All those in favor? The motion carries. Thank you. Our next report is on the Pender Harbour Transfer Station Food Waste Pilot Program. And I see our Manager of Solid Waste Services is here to introduce this report for us.
Hi, thank you all. So before you have a brief summary of the food waste collection pilot program at the Pender Harbour Transfer Station, which has been up and running since November 2022. We've identified that the amount of material coming in is a little bit lower than what the system or the collection system was designed for. So we've proposed some tweaks that we can make if the board wishes to continue the service before we go out to procurement. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from directors on this to start, on the questions on the report? I have a question. Okay, Director Bax.
Yeah, thank you, Manager Saul. I was wondering, so I'm a recipient of a composting service in Roberts Creek, and I was wondering if you could tell me how the service provided to my residents differs from the service that we're offering to Pender Harbour.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you for the question and through the chair. So assuming you live on a residential property in Roberts Creek, you probably have curbside pickup of food waste, which is a separate program that the SCRD does in the electoral areas other than electoral area A. So electoral area A has no curbside program in place. And so this food waste drop-off pilot was put in place in Pender Harbour to help facilitate compliance with the regional district's updates to our solid waste landfill bylaw, which banned food waste disposal at the landfill. So we couldn't roll out a similar curbside food waste pickup program in Area A, so this was the alternative, was a drop-off program at the transfer station.
Thank you. It can sometimes be confusing having previous reports as a guide. I'm looking at other recommendations and going, that sounds really familiar. I thought we passed that already, but no, looking at page 5, we have a recommendation here about initiating a procurement process to continue the drop-off based on the outcome of the pilot program. I think we're all hoping to hear from Director Lee on this at some point, and I'm sure he's got some comments, but I'm going to go to Director Gabius first.
Thank you, Chair. And I wanted to ask if maybe Director Lee or staff have any insight as to why. Well, I mean, I guess I don't know if the quantity, the tonnage that was expected, like the expectations, were they too high, or is it like, is there anything that the SRD can do to facilitate people using the service more? I mean, I don't know what's happening to this food waste that is not ending up in the food waste bin. Is it staying? Is it with the solid waste? Is it just being taken to the landfill, or is it being composted at home? Or like, is there any? Do we know what the barriers are? I mean, so many questions. I don't know if Director Lee has any.
I can speculate myself, but I'm going to go to Director Lee as the director.
That's a really tough question. I would ask the same in the southern part of our Sunshine Coast as well. How much is still going into the solid waste? It's a question of the whole program. I think these things, you either have to have some sort of very strict policing, or you have to educate the people and they voluntarily do it. So I think that's probably something future that we need to start working on, is tweaking people's conscience throughout the coast to make sure they all do it. In Pender Harbor, the lots are fairly big, and there is a lot of people with gardens, and there's a lot of people with electric composters that use it as well. I suspect that weighs in pretty heavy on it as well. Probably awful close to Roberts Creek. Probably do the same thing down there. They're quite environmentally conscious as well with large lots. So Director White would probably just as much in touch with that as me, actually.
I can mention it's not, the landfill isn't exactly in a central location for a lot of people. Pender Harbor, the Area A is a very spread out community. So it is that's always been a challenge going into having a drop-off spot in a location that is, I mean, there's only one gas station in Pender Harbor now, which is somewhat close to where the drop-off is, so that helps. If people are getting gas, they can also do their drop-off, but in general, it's not. It's a bit out of the way, so I think that's probably always going to be a challenge with this location, as a hopeful drop-off point for the entire community. Director Lee.
I did forget to mention one item, though. We do have a private company that picks up solid waste, but they have not moved into picking up the food waste either. So, because it's not a subsidized service in Pender, it's private, and I guess the cost probably is prohibitive for them to do that. I was hoping they would do that, but it didn't happen.
Director McMahon.
Yes, I appreciate the challenge in changing people's habits, seeing as how unsuccessful I sometimes am changing my own habits, never mind anybody else's. I definitely favor extending the program to small businesses. We have so many extremely small, like mom and pop businesses on the coast. Whatever we can do to support them to divert more waste, I think, is really valuable.
Director Lee, did you have, I went to you earlier to answer some questions, but.
Well, I am definitely would like to make a motion to accept the recommendations on page 5. I think it's a great solution.
Director Gabius is seconding that motion. Director Bax, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Well, I just wanted to speak to different ways that we can help accommodate the people of Pender Harbor to increase their uptake on this program. I know that when I began composting, I don't have a composter at home, so I use the service. At first, I was using paper bags, and then I started buying these compostable plastic bags and created a system for myself. Now, we don't offer any compostable plastic bags at the transfer station. That might be something we could consider. So when people do want this, because sometimes they're very expensive for one thing, and sometimes they're hard to find, that if we made them available at cost, it may help with the uptake of the program. I'm just mentioning that.
I do have an additional question myself, but I'll wait until after the motion. Is there anyone, others to speak to the motion? Director Gabius?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And question for staff. I was trying to find the report where we see the tonnage that goes to the landfill and then food waste from all over the coast, and I couldn't find it. But like, how does Pender, because Pender does not have the pickup, is like, how does it compare to the rest of the coast where we do have pickup? Like, what is the intake?
Yeah, thank you for the question and through the chair. So it's not actually that different from elsewhere on the coast. It's roughly like around 22-24%, if memory serves. So sort of in that ballpark of food waste that is in the garbage going to the landfill still.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting, and it ties into the question I have, but I want to deal with the motion first. I'm not speaking to the motion. Does anyone else wish to speak to the motion? All those in favor? All those opposed? I'm giving you a chance to oppose things, Director Inkster, because I don't see your hand up a couple times here. Just because I was in the affirmative. Okay, thank you for clarifying. That motion carries. I will be very clear. Well, I'm giving you the chance. The additional question I had was, this has come up at PTAC about, and Director Lee raised it earlier, about the possibilities of some enforcement, of some checks. I mean, it's kind of come up at PTAC, the concept of having someone at the landfill, a bylaw officer, regularly checking. I wonder if there's even to do spot checks might be a possibility, and I'm just wondering if staff has looked into this, the viability of such a program, and how it could possibly be paid for. I mean, there's different revenues when it comes to solid waste, and just wondering if that's something that could be on the horizon.
Yeah, thank you for the question and through the chair. So as you might be familiar, that is an initiative that may be working its way into the new solid waste management plan to look at ramping up enforcement at our disposal facilities on the coast. So that planning process that our consultant will be working on is looking at cost and staffing implications to roll out greater enforcement. So it's not something staff have done to date, but it is part of this plan update process. And at the completion of that plan, towards the latter half of this year, we'll start to kind of get a better understanding of what those cost and staffing implications might be. I will say between Seashell Landfill and Pender Harbour Transfer Station, because Pender Harbour Transfer Station is less busy than the landfill, and we do have some really long-term, very dedicated staff who typically work the shifts there, that enforcement does tend to be a little bit higher at that site than Seashell, which can often have a lineup of cars out the gate and pressure on staff to sort of move traffic through. So I would say that enforcement is generally a little bit better at Pender, but it's still complicated by busy periods and also just capacity issues with staff to run around between different points on the site helping customers.
Now we're ready for item 4 on the agenda, which is landfill engineering services contract amendment. I see Manager Shoji here. This item is Annex C, pages 26 to 28. It is a contract amendment, and there is a report very concise report. I don't know if there's a lot of choice and discussion when it comes to contract amendments, but I'll look to the board to see if there are any questions for staff on this. Director Toth.
Thank you, Chair. I actually appreciate the staff report greatly. It's clear and it's obvious. I'd like to move the recommendations on page 26.
Seconder, Director McMahon is seconding that motion. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Great, that motion carries. And thank you. Thank you for being with us. Item 5 is on proposed recreation fees increases related to a couple of bylaws that are listed on the agenda, and it's in Annex D, pages 29 to 45. This, again, is a very clear report, and I think is I'm sorry, I'm speaking right now. It's associated with some requests that we've already received from the community, and we have staff here to report on it.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning. Before you is a staff report related to fees and charges levied for services at the 4 community centers and also the Pender Harbor Aquatic and Fitness Center through our applicable established bylaws. These bylaws have never undergone a significant revision since their adoption in 2007, and the only increase was back in 2015. At this time, it's recommended that bylaws 599 and 630 be repealed and replaced by the new proposed bylaws 766 and 767. These new bylaws have been changed in order to update some of the definitions, apply fee increases, reorganize fee schedules to ensure all current program fees are captured, implement fee increases out to 2026, and add a general conditions section to provide additional clarity around our terms and conditions. The recommended fee increases are based on a market review, and as noted in the staff report, we're recommending rate increases for rentals for the next 3 years and an increase to admissions, passes, and fees in 2025 only. This report also provides a staff recommendation in regard to the board directive to review implications of including an ice rental rate for seniors. And otherwise, I'd be happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Thank you. Director McMahon has a question.
Sure. My question is, why do we define seniors as 60? Because there seems to be, if you look around, everybody has a different definition of what a senior is. And for our transit system, it's 65, though I assume BC Transit sets that. But why 60?
Might have to do with some of the groups at their own delineations, I know. But I'll look to staff to clarify.
Thank you, through the chair. I'll just note that we have not made any significant changes to the bylaw. So the definition has been in place since the bylaw was adopted in 2007. So that would be one of the things that we need to look at when we do a wholesome review. But we didn't go into any of that for this what's in front of you today. Thank you.
Director Gabius.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to start by moving the recommendations on page 29. And I have a question on page 30. Oh, I guess, do we need to second?
Did you move? Yeah, I thought you moved that, yeah. Seconded by Director Stamford.
Good. And if I may ask a question, on page 32, there's reference to a user group meeting, some user group meetings, and I'm just wondering what the feedback was from the user group when these fee changes were discussed.
I will look to staff to see if they can answer that question.
Thank you for the question. We did meet with our user groups at our regular allocation meetings, so there's a couple a year, and during those meetings, we gave all user groups a heads up that this review would be happening and that we expected a potential fee increase. All were understanding because it had been so long since we had increased fees, but the main thing was just making sure they were prepared for their upcoming membership drives and so on.
We have a motion before us to support the staff recommendation. Director McMahon, are you speaking to the motion? Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to thank staff for putting in a senior rate for the hockey players so that they can keep going. Thank you.
Staff?
Thank you, Chair. I just appreciate the opportunity to provide clarity. So I want to be clear that we didn't create a new rate. We are just identifying the same rate that they're paying, but putting the senior's name beside it so that there's not a financial impact. Thank you.
Yeah, they were very concerned that their rate was going to be increased by.
Well, it also provides clarity to everybody.
I think we're ready to vote on this. All those in favor? That motion carries. And we will go to the next item, which is item 6 on the agenda, Annex E, pages 46 to 80, Gibson's Area Community Center enhancements in regards to seating. And I'll look to our GM to introduce this.
Chair, I don't really have an introduction. I think the report speaks for itself, but we're very excited to see this come forward. We really appreciate the efforts that the community is taking to help support the junior hockey initiative in terms of this seating project is an important one for ticket sales. So happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, there is a great deal of informative written reporting in this agenda in relation to this and a couple of associated issues. So we appreciate that. Director McMahon.
Thank you. In this process, do we have quality control over the seats that are purchased? Because it's in our interests, obviously, to get high-quality seats that will last a long time. It would be very awkward if they all, broke in a couple of years.
General Manager.
Thank you, through the chair. So the group has just been great at including us in conversation and discussions on what product to order, are working with a company that we're used to working with. So we're very pleased with what's been put in front of us so far. And as the board will remember, you did approve some funding for some quality assurance and oversight during the process. So far, so good. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Bax.
I want to move the motion as it appears on page 46.
Is there a seconder for that? I see Director Inkster seconding that motion. Any discussion on the motion? Director Bax, did you want to speak to it? Okay. Let's vote then. All those in favor of the motion? That motion carries. I just saw, yeah. Well, Director Lee didn't put his hand up, but Director Lee's not in the function. That would be why. So I think I think everybody voted. Director McMahon?
Yeah, I just, perhaps you can refresh us on the timeline here because it is already April and I understand that the games are hopefully going to start in September. So it sounds like we could be in a bit of a crunch to get everything in place. Is there any comment from staff on that?
I'll look to the GM to answer this and then recognize that Stu Frizzell is here as well if staff wants any. There's a detailed document in this agenda too about all the different roles. So I appreciate that Stuart's here.
Thank you, through the chair. So you are correct. The tsunami is coming and games will begin in the fall. And in fact, the team is already busy with player identification and getting things ready to go. So the society is under a time crunch to get these seats ordered so that we can get them in time to install during our shutdown is the preferred option. So I think if there was an appetite to move this forward faster, that would be appreciated. But if you want to follow due process, we can do that as well. But we definitely would like to get them installed during shutdown. That would just make it easier because we have sort of emptied the facility during the shutdown with an anticipation that there was going to be several projects underway. So it will make construction quite easy. We don't have to be cleaning up every day so that we can get user groups coming in and out. I hope that answered the question. Thank you.
So It does, a lot of work has clearly been done to get to this point. So what I'm hearing is it might be a good idea to move this straight to board. Yeah. So is that, would you like to move that?
Sure, I'd be
Okay.
happy to move sending this straight to board if that's helpful.
Thank you, Director McMahon, seconded by Director Gabius. I think that's a straightforward motion, so all those in favor? That motion carries. So I think we're ready to move on to the next item here. Also related. Actually, that was, that was just a big succession of reports that I was looking at. There are so many reports that were stacked together. We're now on item 7, which is the water supply plan feasibility study, long-term groundwater supply sources. It's a contract, again, Annex F, pages 81 to 83. I'll invite staff up to see if there are any questions on this. But yeah, this is a straightforward, should be straightforward contract award that just needs our approval. So I'll just see if there are any questions from directors on this report. I see Director Toth. It's a
Thank you, Chair.
value amendment, to be clear.
Recognizing that this is work that we have identified that we would like done, I'm happy to move the recommendations as they appear on page 81.
Thank you, Director Toth. I see Director Bax seconding that motion. Director Lee?
Yeah, I'm happy to see this go forward. Cost is a little, I was wondering what the cost per liter is at the end of the day, but I guess that will be something we will talk about once we know whether there's water there or not. So, yeah, I'm okay.
Great. Thank you, Director Lee. Any other, I see Director McMahon.
No, this is an opportunity of good value, I think, taking the opportunity to expand the existing contracts. So really happy to see it, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Director McMahon. Anyone else wishing to speak to the motion? All those in favor of the motion? That motion carries unanimously. And we are on to item 8. Thank you, staff. Annex G, pages 84 to 86, and this is regarding resolutions for UBCM. And there is a report associated with this, as I mentioned, on page 84. There may be some discussion from directors on these motions and potential other ones, but I think it's mostly self-explanatory here about when the dates are and deadlines and things. So I'll see if directors have any questions. Director McMahon.
I don't actually have questions. All of our motions were endorsed at AVICC. We did 6, which is quite a lot. Generally, the late motions should be for emerging issues, and I'm not aware of any pressing emerging issues that we have at the moment. So I can't see any reason to think up another motion at this point unless other directors have a pressing emerging issue.
And yeah, and again, it does say in the report, if there are emerging issues, the deadline is June 15th, 2024. So it'd certainly be helpful to identify them now, but we do have a little more time if something pops up. We'll see.
Thank you, Chair.
Staff.
Can I just clarify that due date as well? It will need to go to the May 23rd board meeting in order to meet the June 15th deadline.
So that would be for our deadline to get to June 15th would be May 23rd. Is there a, right, so that we do have a motion here, it's not just to receive, but, oh yeah, no, we're good, we're done. Yeah, we don't need to identify more motions or more resolutions. Thank you. And now items 9 9 to 11 are really just to receive. We've received these reports. And we have our manager of purchasing and risk management here to answer any questions on our, I guess it's quarterly report on contracts between 50,000 and 100,000, which is a routine report we're used to. I'll just look to see if directors have any questions. Director McMahon.
Were we planning to amend our limits that come to the board? Because I remember some discussion about it, because that we're getting more and more contracts that fall within the limits that have to come to the board for consideration.
Regarding minutes, I'll look to our corporate officer.
Thank you, Chair, for the question. So the delegation bylaw would be the instrument by which we would amend those limits, and it is in queue for our bylaw review, which is coming up this year.
Thank you. Not seeing any questions or comments on Annex I, which is again a quarterly report on constituency travel expenses. Annex J is our this is just minutes of the PTAC committee. I'm the liaison of this committee. The discussions that are happening here are really very, very dynamic and informative, and I think the consultants are also very, very informative as well in terms of their help and their direction, and they're able to share with all the participants what on the spot what's going on in the rest of the province, and it's really helpful. So that committee, which is in moving towards a new solid waste management plan, is going quite well, I've noticed. Director Lee?
Yeah, it really looks like PTAC's doing good work and looking at a lot of things. I was surprised there was no recommendations, though, at all. They do know that they can make recommendations, do they?
Yeah, a lot of the focus right now is on the solid waste management plan. Like that's where all the meetings are directed. So it's not so much the PMAC. The former committee was kind of reviewing what was going on in solid waste on a monthly basis and commenting on it. But this format is more directed by the consultant in terms of building a new solid waste management plan. So. The discussion is very much directed in that vein.
I maybe got to attend more of them so I can get better educated. Thank you.
Yep. Director Toth?
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one on page 93. In the open discussion, it's mentioned that creosote wood is not accepted at Salish soils. I was under the impression that Salish was able to take contaminated wood and they had a process for it. So I wonder if there's any staff in the room that might be able to speak to what someone is supposed to do with creosote wood.
I wish I could remember that myself, but fortunately there is staff in the room. So I'll go to our manager.
Thank you for the question and through the chair. Yeah, that comment actually came from our chair of PTAC, who's an employee of Salish Soils. So I'm inclined to understand the accuracy of what he was saying. Creosote wood is a very challenging material to handle. It is hazardous waste. And so the recommended course of action would actually be to find a hazardous waste disposal company, of which there are a couple in Vancouver that could take that material. And it's either typically shipped to a secure disposal site in Alberta or is treated thermally with some sort of combustion burning process.
Thank you. Director Gabius.
Thank you, Chair. I really enjoyed these minutes. Seems like there was amazing discussion, 2 hours for the meeting and so many good recommendations for the solid waste management plan, which could you remind me when that is going to be, when the draft will be published for this document?
Since we have staff here, I'll look to staff to answer that question.
Thank you for the question and through the chair. So we're currently actually trying to determine exactly when our timeline will play out. Originally, it was going to be the end of 2024, but just due to the additional work required to determine our long-term disposal options, we're thinking that it's going to be sometime in Q1 2025 before the plan is actually in a draft form presented to the board at that time. But we're well on our way to kind of completing a lot of the initiatives that will be in the plan and expect those to be kind of wrapped up towards the fall this year.
Director Gabius?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Because, time is of the essence, the landfill is getting pretty full, and I'm wondering if there will be recommendations that will inform budget, like if there are some initiatives that can be started before the solid waste management plan is in place. Is this a possibility?
I'll look to staff.
Yeah, thank you for the question and through the chair. We'll certainly have initiatives proposed for the plan ready to go before the end of the year. So those could be incorporated into the 2025 budget proposal. However, the plan itself would not be finalized at that point. So there might be some consideration into whether it's appropriate to bring those forward. But I think certainly from a staff level, we'd love to get going with some of these initiatives sooner than later. So we can certainly look at it.
Director Lee?
Seeing some people are asking questions, I thought maybe I would too. I had them penciled
Have 'em
in
here.
here. It's under the PTAC open discussion. The PTAC felt more options are still needed for the landfill options. Did they actually suggest what those options were during the discussion?
Options for
Not
the
that you need to
landfill.
tell us, but
Yeah, thank you for the question and through the chair. Yeah, this tends to come up quite a lot in these sorts of discussions, but waste to energy is often a popular idea amongst members of the public, and in these sorts of debates over what to do with our garbage, and everyone likes to point to Europe and say, well, it works there, we should do it too. But there are a lot of challenges and cost considerations with waste export, particularly given our small market. But that's sort of essentially where that line of conversation was going in PTAC.
one more.
Go ahead, Director Lee.
And the other one that caught my attention, I put a big question mark, was encouraging pet waste alternatives like cat litter pellets. I have a dog, so it's pretty hard to imagine for me. Is
That's
there any
always,
context on that?
That always comes up too. Both the meetings I've been to so far, there's always talk about cat litter. I'll go to our staff to answer that.
Yeah, thank you for the question and through the chair. Yeah, and this is just kind of coming from a resident on PTAC and is a sort of a point of concern they've identified in the community potentially. So pet waste disposal and other alternatives for pet waste other than landfilling might be something to consider in future. I mean, it's obviously a small component of the overall waste stream, but it's good to be aware of some of these challenges that people in the community might be thinking of and wondering what to do with.
Yeah, and I think it is Salish Soils went away saying they'd do some more research on the viability of that. I see Director Bax next.
Yeah, I liked the expression thermal treatment. That was good. In the last month, I've had several people discuss with me the idea of an air curtain burner. Now, I understand that the Cathette Regional District has one, and it may be a solution to creosote wood, the invasive plants that Salish Soils does not take. If there's ever an avian flu outbreak and we need to dispose of livestock, this particular appliance is a useful tool. I was wondering if there's been any discussion or in the solid waste department about this particular tool that could be brought to the Sunshine Coast and used.
Director Bax, I think you were at the meeting and asked the same question, didn't you?
Yeah, and I didn't receive an answer.
Okay. I thought there was one from. Yeah, I thought there was one, but anyway, we'll ask again.
Yeah, thank you for the question and through the chair. So my understanding from that meeting was that Salish Soils is actually looking at the viability of bringing that air curtain burner to their facility. And certainly, from our perspective, a private sector solution whereby they identify a business opportunity, which there may be on the coast here with invasive species, and implement a program at their facility to offer that service would definitely be advantageous for the region. So I think they are aware that there is a potential market here for invasive species disposal with such a device. I would caution on using it or potentially thinking of using it for things such as creosote wood and also livestock disposal. I think there are quite strict requirements on the emissions for disposing of those materials, particularly with stuff like creosote wood, and I don't believe, I'd have to double check, but I don't believe an air curtain burner would be a feasible option for disposing of certainly creosote wood and other sort of typically hazardous materials like that, at least not without some very expensive modifications to scrub the emissions potentially.
Director Gabius?
Thank you, Chair. And I had actually the same observation question as Director Baxter about invasive species disposal. I went to an Ivy poll this weekend, and the conversation about, yes, we need to pull out all the invasive species, but there's nowhere to take them. So we were talking about Kithat and how they have this incinerator and whether it'd be possible to bring it to the lower coast once or twice a year, or if there was some kind of partnership potential there. But thank you, staff, for speaking to it. And I just wanted to mention that I was very happy to see on page 93, talking about debris waste management. I think we talk a lot about climate adaptation mitigation, but not very much about recovery. And that was nice to see that there's some thought given to what do we do with solid waste when disaster strikes. So that was it was a welcome thing to see there. Thank you.
All the questions that this set of minutes is inviting leads me to remember during this meeting, it was a really great overview of all the possible alternatives we're looking at, and there was really lively discussion, and it reminded me that, and I heard recently from Director Toth that this happened last term. But this board hasn't really had that same kind of discussion on solid waste, on really an overview of all the options and all the considerations. And it is awkward that it's helpful in some ways, but awkward at the same time that our solid waste management plan is going simultaneously to the decisions we have to make in solid waste. So they're somewhat having to go, okay, well, what's the board thinking about this versus this? While they're also supposed to be kind of independently creating a plan for it. So I think, I'll just mention it as a liaison. It really struck me that it would be helpful for the board to have this kind of workshop with the same kind of information. And I'll probably talk to our chair and staff about this a little further to see what might fit in. I see our CAO wishing to speak to this idea too.
Yes, thank you for the question. I'm wondering if this is in scope of the budget or the project that was approved that was a solid waste summit. for 2024. We haven't got that fully scoped, and we don't have a date for it because we're working so hard on the water summits and stuff right now. But there is plans to do a solid waste summit in 2024 to talk about some of these things. We could certainly have further conversation about how we frame the agenda and the scope for the summit.
Yeah, it's worthy of more discussion, I think, because I think there might be some conversations to deal with property that might have to be in camera, that might not be more, appropriate for a kind of a public summit, but it's definitely something to figure out what fits in where. And I'm glad to hear that's being considered by staff. I think our next item is to go in camera. That's moved by Director Bax. Thank you, Manager Sol. That the public be excluded from attendance at this meeting in accordance to Section 90E, I, and K of the Community Charter. Those reasons are listed on the agenda page. That's seconded by Director Gabius. All those in favor of the motion? I didn't see any opposed, so we're moving in camera. And we'll take a little, yeah, Director Lee, do you? Yeah, we're going to take a 5-minute break and sort out. Well, answer questions from the public. Okay, we'll do that right now. Is there anyone who wants to ask a question? Yeah, go ahead.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair. Can you hear me? It's Connie from Coast Reporter. Wonderful. I'd like to ask through you to staff for an update on progress.
I'll choose to delegate it to staff if need be.
Okay, thank you. Just looking for an update on progress on the groundwater investigation Phase 5 drilling program in West Seashelt, in particular, if all approvals to proceed with the drilling are in place.
Could you ask that, maybe send an email into I mean, I think you probably have the right contacts. We don't have anyone in the room associated with that.
Certainly
it's not on the agenda, so.
Oh, certainly can do that. May I ask another quick question?
Yeah.
I noticed that CAO McKinley mentioned upcoming water summits. Have the dates of those been set, and can those be released?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't think they haven't come to the board anyway. I'll look to Director McKinley if he's got any reports.
The dates have not been finalized at this time.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Connie. Are there any other questions out there? Okay, I don't see anyone else raising their hand, so I'll just ask that people, anyone who is attending this meeting online who Thank you. We've returned to our public agenda of the Sunshine Coast Regional District Committee of the Whole for April 25th, 2024. We have no items to release from our in-camera portion, and we need to adjourn this meeting. Moved by Director Gabius, seconded by Director Bax. All those in favor? The motion carries. The meeting is adjourned.